As Baltimore passes 300 murders for the second straight year, we bring you the second part of our conversation with new Councilman Kris Burnett. We started by asking him how he plans to balance public safety with reforming the Baltimore City Police Department.
I'll start with the public safety question because I think there's a misconception that police in themselves can make neighborhoods safer. And so I was encouraged to see that the Public Safety Committee is now the Public Safety and Health Committee in the council, because I think we have to begin to look at public safety and violence as a health issue. That is a result of other issues. So, I mentioned my priorities being housing, working with young people, jobs. I mean, that is the thing that I believe can end violence. Not that we don't need police, because we do. I mean, that's always the struggle with being a progressive legislator is when when I canvassed my communities, there were several older residents who their biggest fear wasn't the police. Their fear is the guy selling drugs on the corner, and they wouldn't even open their door for me, and they knew who I was. But so there's got to strike a balance where, we are making older residents feel safer, our young people feel safe. We have bystanders being shot and murdered every day in the city. But I think, more police doesn't necessarily mean safer neighborhoods. I think that when we make investments in schools, after school programs, youth jobs, when we talk about the mental health impact that violence in communities has on our young people who are frankly the same ones holding weapons. A lot of them have lost family members and friends to violence, and those are traumatic experiences. So we really have to make investments in mental health resources. And then the jobs piece is important. I mean, we really have to partner not only as city government, but partnering with nonprofits, community organizations, and advocacy groups to really help people become workforce ready. Because there's a skills gap that exists with, folks who may not graduate from high school or may not have, a ton of skills that make them ready for the work that's available here in the city. We have a lot of healthcare jobs. We have construction. I mean, we just saw a $600 million TIF go through with the last council for Port Covington. That's 25 years of construction. I'd like to see a pipeline from the Edmondson West Side Skills Center in my district to those job sites, and making sure that the people who are working there live in the city of Baltimore and can support their families, that make a livable wage. And so I think that's where we get at this public safety question. As it relates to police reform, I think, I did read of course everyone read the consent decree, and that's something that will be coming down the pipe. And, I look forward to working with the police department to implement those changes, because at the end of the day, there needs to be accountability. We have to get bad officers off the streets, and they have to be held accountable for their actions. In talking to some officers, though, they want that too. At the end of the day, your officer that is trying to do the right thing doesn't want a bad officer either. And I think, so there is that does exist. And that's not always the narrative, but so I think the ground is ripe for a shift in accountability, and it's something I know is a priority for me, because if folks don't, and I'll go back to the older woman that lives across the street from me and I've talked to, doesn't feel comfortable opening her door. She also may not feel comfortable calling the police for the same reason, that she may not know what's going to happen when that officer interacts with a young man that she's afraid of. And I've talked to folks that have that concern as well, so they just don't call. And so I think there's that trust piece that has to be rebuilt. So when we talk about community policing, when we talk about walking the beats and building relationships, I know this is something that I've mentioned to the commissioner in a few opportunities I've had to talk to him, that this is something that has to happen. We have to rebuild trust, and that comes with the accountability piece, but it also comes with the relationship building piece, so that folks feel comfortable. Because police do play a role in keeping our neighborhood safe, but as I've already said, this holistic approach to just reinvesting in our communities and our people, I think is really what's going to move the needle and make our neighborhood safer.
And so there has been a lot of resistance, especially from the FOP, the police union, on a city and statewide level, to structural changes, to accountability. And the FOP is a very strong lobbying force to resist laws and resist changes. You saw the Officers' Bill of Rights and their campaign against that over the last few legislative sessions in Annapolis. What's your position on the groups that are going to resist change and resist having increased accountability?
I hope that changes. I haven't had a chance to sit down with them and over these particular issues, but I will. As was published yesterday, I'll be on the Public Safety Committee, so we'll be on the front lines with implementing these changes. And I hope there's a culture shift. If not, we're going to have to just kind of duke it out. It's important that we bring accountability to this city. I understand, as a former union worker, that your job is to protect your workers and put their interests first. But at the end of the day, I hope they see that the interest of their workers is more accountability and a safer workplace, and a workplace where officers aren't, abusing their power. I mean, that makes their job easier because it builds trust, so officers don't have to worry about the violence and the uptick that we've seen against officers in this country. That's an outpouring of this kind of divisive rhetoric that we're seeing from the top down. And so it'll be important that, they see that this is not, taking a shot at officers or public safety workers or first responders. I have several in my family, and they go to work and try and support their families like anyone else. But they also there has to be an accountability piece that holds them accountable for when they do wrong, and those changes need to happen.
Finally, a measure to raise the Baltimore's minimum wage to $15 was narrowly defeated, and that's been postponed, and we know that's going to be on the agenda. Do you support that, raising the minimum wage to $15? Why or why not?
Absolutely. When we talk about the cost of living in Baltimore City, how much people pay for rent as a percentage of their income, it's very high, and will only continue to get higher as you see more people coming into the city. And so, the cost of living in this country hasn't changed. It's gone up for years. I mean, milk, cereal, things that just, when you go to the grocery store, the prices aren't stagnant, so wages should not also be stagnant as well. Now we also have to try and find a way to implement it so that it doesn't hurt businesses as well, the small ones, which I have a lot of in my district. I don't have any kind of very few major employers. So making sure that we also aren't putting folks out of business, but that we are investing in families is important. So, I do look forward to working on that legislation because I something that I campaigned on, that I felt was important, that, our families need a raise, and we have to raise the minimum wage. It's important. So I will be, supporting the fight for 15.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
For our full interview with newly sworn in District 8 Councilperson Kris Burnett, go to therealnews.com. This is Jessel Noor in Baltimore.